project, and we'd been doing a woman giving birth to a hedgehog. So when he said, "Would you be interested in a bunch of pizza-eating, sewer-dwelling rats brought up by turtles brought up by a rat who meditates?" I thought it was pretty normal, actually. It just kind of came straight out of what we were doing, and because I was the one who didn't react, fell on the floor for the concept. And also I felt it was a movie I hadn't seen before, and I really, very few projects that were around in the 80s were things that were new and fresh and different and unique.
And how much did you know about the Turtles before you actually got hired and started researching? Were you familiar with what was going on and who they were and what the basic concepts were?
Yeah, I looked at the books, the original, the first few comments in the original graphic novel, and I thought it was a great story. There was the bones of a great story there anyway, and so that was something that made it much easier to get involved with. But they didn't have, Golden Harvest didn't have the money to make the film. In fact, they approached me and said they had about $3 million, maybe up to $3 million to make something, and it had to be shot in Hong Kong because that's the only way that we could do it for $3 million. And I just kind of slowly, over a period of about 6 months, just kind of pulled them over towards Jim Henson and basically talked Jim Henson into doing it, because he wasn't too comfortable with nunchucks and swords and things coming out of the Muppets and that sort of thing. It wasn't a natural fit for the Henson Creature Shop, and so it was just about talking him into it and then talking them into trying to find a bigger budget. And we went to Cannes and we pitched the film at Cannes, and everyone looked at us like we were crazy. Nobody got it. Nobody, it went nowhere. I think the same thing. Probably first reaction to the toys might have been the same thing. Just people didn't get it, and every studio turned it down. Every single studio said, it was a trauma film, went off the shelf, and came straight back to us. So it looked like until even 4 or 5 weeks before we started, we weren't going to get the film into production. It just couldn't quite do it. And then New Line came along with a little measly $2 million for their eventual $150 million gross, but it gave us enough money to make the film, or to get into post-production.
And in addition to the financial challenges, what did you see once you kind of got in and saw the research and where the property was at the moment with animation and toys as the challenges for bringing the Turtles to life instead of animation? And conversely, what did you see exciting about that opportunity?
Well, I thought the most exciting thing was the characters. Obviously, these were brothers, and the whole piece really worked for me. I just felt it was very rounded. There was a story to find through the thread of the film, and that was about it. And that the Shredder having the Fagin-esque quality of controlling these kids and having them out stealing for him actually came from a newspaper article in the Philadelphia. I think it was the Philadelphia Inquirer. It wasn't. It was a little two paragraph thing that somebody sent me and said, "Would this make a good movie?" And it was about a guy who had all these kids under his spell, and mainly because he was stealing things, every third thing he'd steal would be something they'd like. And so they'd go out and steal from him and come back. And it just felt like the missing link for the first movie was that, and that weaving that into the story was all it needed as a thread.
Cool. And there's a lot of fan interest here in a director's cut, and there's rumors that you may have a lot of film on the editing room floor that you've now locked away in a closet in your house. And is there any chance that you're going to be able to influence the powers that be to do something and allow you to show that film or put out a director's cut? You had any discussions with Warner?
Yeah, it's hard to find out who owns the film worldwide. I mean, I don't. It's a very complicated thing. I'd love to do a director's cut. I'd love to do a special edition. I've got tons of stuff. I've got an original cut with some other scenes in it. I've got original storyboards. I've got packs of original storyboards and the whole, tests that we did on the Turtles. And we could do a cool special edition, but I really don't know who you go to. I mean, maybe these guys would have some influence.
So let's start a letter writing campaign when you get out of here to Warner Brothers.
Be careful what you wish for, Gary.
Thanks, Steve. move to Matt. Compared to some of these veterans of the Turtles, Matt, you're a bit of a Turtles neophyte here. When and how did you discover the Turtles?
Man, I think the first time I saw the Turtles, I lived in Chicago, Illinois. Actually at this town outside called Naperville, and they had a comic book shop called Graham Cracker Comics, I think. Yeah, and I think I was like 10 years old, 9 years old, and I walked in and was piling through all the old, I had G.I. Joe comics, Superman comics, and I saw this black and white comic called Turtle Soup, and it had 3 turtles on a dragon's back holding a 4th turtle, and it looked like a heavy metal album cover. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I have to get this. And at the time, that's when comics were $2. I think it was $2, $2 or $3, and to me that was insane. Because, you know, Superman comics were 99 cents. And I was like, what is this? So I went and, you know, I did the whole like, mowed lawns, got my $2, and I brought it back. And after that, I just spent time like tracing the comic, tracing individual panels. And it's kind of weird, so I started younger with the black and white comic, and then, you know, the cartoon kind of came around and had more of like a playfulness to it, and that drew me in immediately, and then ever since then.
Cool. And licensed properties have not always made for good video games. It's
true.
So why do you think the Turtle games have, generally speaking, worked pretty well from the very early Konami days up through your Ubisoft games?
Well, I think it's the brand. The brand itself is there's so much about the brand that people dig. And, you know, I think as long as the brand's been around, the 25 years, I feel like, you know, the games have been around. I remember, you know, before I started researching, you know, our team started researching for this new Turtles game, I think I played every single game that had come out. From the old Nintendo one, like 20 years ago, that was frustratingly hard. I think that must have been a prerequisite for all Nintendo games, is that they had to make you cry
And as you're probably aware, one of those old games, Turtles in Time, will be out on Xbox Live Arcade. Courtesy of Ubisoft.
But yeah, so you know, it went through the Nintendo era, the arcade came up, and that kind of had more of a feel of the cartoon, a lot more of the playfulness, and I think the arcades were such a hit because they really nailed the Turtles. You know, they got that sense of humor, they had the action, they had, you know, all the characters you wanted to see. They were just awesome. The old arcades were classics. And then, you know, they moved on to kind of more the Battle Nexus era, Konami's games. You know, we did our one in 2007 with the last movie, and now this one in time for the 25th anniversary.
And why did Ubisoft focus this time just on the Wii and the PS2 for the new game and ignore like Xbox and PS3? And why did you go for that Super Smash Brothers style game rather than maybe a harder-edged fighting game that would be based more faithfully on the comics?
Well, we started with the idea that we wanted to do a Wii game. You know, I think the brand lends itself perfectly, with the game that we were looking to do, lends itself perfectly for the Wii. I mean, the target audience are kids, adults, you know, you got kids and their parents grew